Chapter 3. Dawn. There we go, or better. The man sighed and lifted his fingers from her head. His eyes were lighter face to face, as was his skin, like death kissed him moments before he arrived. But his hair, dark as starless night, hung over his eyes. Still kneeling, he asked, "How do you feel?" How could she answer that? The girl would frown if she were not scared of what might happen if she did. 1 second they injected her with a serum that made her lose her senses. Then next, the man behind the mirror fed her serum that made it disappear. "Where am I?" she mouthed, completely ignoring his question. Her voice still did not sound. Fire blazed in her throat. She wrapped her hands around her neck and whimpered in pain. She couldn't speak. The starless-haired man held onto her palms. His skin was cool, warmer than ice but colder than marble. He pulled her till she sat with legs that dangled over the bed. "Try not talk. You may damage your vocal cords if you force it. Your body has to heal from the defrost process. Nod if you understand me." Her head trembled with the weight now lifted from her neck. He waited for her answer. She nodded. "Then, let's begin." The man cleared his throat, tugged on his tie and continued. "My name is Alex. I'm your guardian." Guardian? He glared like he expected her to know what that meant, but she didn't. Alex's voice changed so fast from gentle to harsh in a matter of seconds. "You're in Eden, a laboratory built for the rehabilitation of creatures created from Titan. You're not human, therefore you are a threat to humanity." Not human? A threat? This didn't make any sense. How was she a threat when they poked, prodded and gassed her within the mere minute she was awake? Alex continued. "Abide by our rules and subject yourself to experimentation, and things will be easy. Don't, and things will be hard." The girl flinched. How could things be any harder than her burning throat and the complete question mark of herself? Alex must have read her face and quickly spoke again. "When you were created, a darkness was placed inside you. Your kind calls it a puppet soul. It is a weapon used when you are afraid. You can lose yourself completely to it and become dangerous. That is why you are here." Alex had seen many creatures come in and out of this room. Some men, some women, even some children. They were all the same. Craved freedom. Dangerous, but most of all lost. Lost in a war that wasn't theirs. They were human once. But they had that privilege taken from them the day Titan fell from the heavens. Dr. Oberon's voice rang in Alex's ears. But this girl, this terrified girl, stared at him. Or through him. Alex wasn't sure. He had so many questions like, how did she become to be frozen in ice? Or why was there blood on her face and clothes when she was in it? Or what power did she hold that is strong enough to kill an entire room full of people without a single move? A faint blue glow peeked at the corner of Alex's eyes. It sat on the girl's ribs and shone through her gown, but only the most careful of eyes like his could see it. It was familiar, like he had seen it somewhere before. Before he could ask what the glow was or what it meant, his phone rang in his pocket. Annoyed, Alex fished it out. Xavier, his phone read. "Emergencies only," Alex told Xavier. He tensed. He would have to call Xavier back and pray to the moon that whatever it was could wait. Alex ended the call. He would deal with that later. He cleared his throat and finally diverted his attention to her. "I will ask you a series of questions. Nod your head for yes, shake your head for no. Nod your head if you understand me." She nodded. "Alright then, let's start simple. Did someone freeze you?" The girl lifted her eyebrow and moved her eyes around the room. She didn't answer him as if she didn't know the answer herself. "Okay, how about did you freeze yourself?" Again, she didn't answer. She looked confused and saddened by the question. "Please cooperate." Her bottom lip quivered. She bowed her head and her legs and wrapped her arms around her chest. It didn't work. Maybe he asked the wrong questions. "Let's try another question. Did you know you were frozen?" The girl looked up and shook her head with tears in her eyes. Alex bit his bottom lip. Okay, we're getting somewhere. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a notepad and pen before placing it in front of her. Can you write down your name? He pointed to the pad. To his surprise, the girl shook her head. Do you know how to spell? The girl nodded. Alex's brows furrowed. She couldn't understand him. She could write and spell. There was just one piece missing. Do you know your name? Her lips trembled, and the girl sobbed into her legs. Her brown locks draped down and covered her face. That was answer enough. She didn't know who she was. At the corner of his eye, ice formed on the walls until it moulded into the shape of wings. Alex stopped and gazed in awe at her, but she didn't stare at him. Instead, she looked at her feet, her lips pursed tight. Alex shut his open mouth and cleared his throat again. His professional stance crumbled by the second. The ice behind her created sharp icicle that protruded from the walls. It cracked and hummed throughout the room. Alex stepped back and now regretted his decision to move forward. The girl jumped at the sound and turned to see what was behind her. Her eyes widened and shook. She huddled from her bed and fell to the ground. The sharp ice wings moved from the wall until they sat underneath her. She moved around on the floor, shuffling herself back and forth, fearful as the ice followed her like a shadow. Her reaction to his question created fear. That fear created power she could not control. She was dangerous, not because of who she was, but because of what she didn't know. This girl, if fallen into the wrong hands, would be molded into a seeker, a hunter for her own kind. Alex wouldn't let that happen. You don't know who you are, do you? He asked. Alex had only met one creature that lost their memory. They remembered their name, but she was different. Her past was completely lost. Alex grabbed hold of the notepad that lay on the bed and scribbled a few notes. Once he finished, he flicked his eyes at her. For now, to keep you safe, your name will be Dawn. A name gave her protection, that she was somebody. Alex paused and thought of a good enough story Dr. Oberon would believe. You're 21, a noble from the fishing borders of the Scottish Isles. You tried to run from a mob of witch hunters and fell into the icy sea, where Eden found you. Alex gazed at the girl for a reaction, but she shook from the ice below her as if she had never seen it before. Alex sighed and walked towards Dawn, her eyes still low on the ice that seemed to follow her. He knelt and clutched her shoulders to get her attention. In an instant, Dawn turned, her cold skin cooled and her eyes sheeted in crimson. Puppet soul. Dawn hissed, and a gust of ice slammed Alex into the wall. His back was first to impact and first to break. Sharp pain soared through his body like wildfire. He fell to the floor and moaned as his bones hurried to mend themselves together. Each found a mother web to place themselves in. His shoulder popped back in its socket, and his spine clicked into place, one vertebrae at a time. Dawn's eyes returned to brown and gazed down at Alex in horror. Dawn sat on the ground, her eyes burned and her skin tingled. She stared at Alex's body, which sprawled across the ground, lifeless and still. Like death actually did visit him this time. She leaned on her arms, which now shook in dread. She never meant to hurt him. Whatever happened, Dawn had no control over. 1 second she stared at the ice underneath her, then the next, time slowed and silence filled the room. When she finally came back to consciousness, Alex fell from the wall into the ground. Was he dead? Dawn scurried to her knees and crawled forward. He didn't breathe. No movement came from his body. Still, she needed to know if he was alive. Dawn reached out her fingers towards his neck. What was to happen if he was dead? Whatever it was, Dawn didn't want to be around to find out. A cracking groan came from the face-down man. Dawn jolted back and pulled her hand to her chest in disgust. He was alive. Alex's back twitched and cracked, moaning slowly as he scrambled to his knees. He held his neck and rolled it back in place as Dawn covered her mouth in horror. He was nowhere near dead. She wasn't sure if that was good or bad. That hurt, he mumbled and snapped his neck back into place. That's when Dawn knew he wasn't human, and somehow through the missing pieces in her mind, she knew humans ruled this land. I would very much prefer it if you didn't do that again. Alex stood and fixed his tie and continued. You have to learn how to control your fear before you lose yourself to your puppet soul. Dawn had figured he was not human now. That much Alex knew. It should have stayed hidden, but it didn't. Footsteps and muffled voices outside her room made Alex's eyes linger towards the wall, and like looking through a window, Alex watched as 2 doctors walk past with their heads bowed. Dr. Oberon is strange today, one of them said and nudged the other's arm. Yeah, he's so... happy? Yeah, it's odd. Did you hear about the new creature that came in yesterday? It killed a whole room of scientists. That's not true. I heard Mrs. Samael survived. Alex sighed and brushed his hands through his hair. He must have missed those 2. He'd better divert their minds before they told anyone else. With the clatter of their shoes, the doctors disappeared around the corner. That'll be all for today, he said and moved his gaze back to Dawn. There was no time for explanations or questions. He made his way towards the hidden door, not before he stopped and glanced over his shoulder. Good night, Dawn. Try and get some rest, because the real test begins tomorrow. Dawn watched as Alex left the room quicker than he'd entered. She wasn't sure if it was good he left, but she wasn't sure if it was noble he stayed. Dawn covered her face with her hands and sighed in relief when the door had closed. Her eyes burned, her throat closed, and she let her tears flow. She woke in a world of white walls, green gas, and someone like her disguised as a human. Though she did not remember the world before this, she knew it couldn't have been as horrid as this. She pictured the moss on rocks, the endless pastures and crystal waters, where life thrived within air itself. Life, people, family. A family. My family. In the silence of the room, she realized she belonged somewhere, or rather to someone. Someone who would be worried sick. A mother, father, a home. This wasn't home. This was torture. She had only just woken. Dawn promised herself then and there that she would escape, and she would find her family, whatever it took. As she promised herself, a gentle voice trailed through her walls. Do you remember the story? Dawn searched her room for the host. Gazing towards the looking glass, she saw no one there except a silver desk, lined with test tubes. It couldn't have come from there. She frowned. Dawn pushed herself up and held onto the walls for balance. Her legs screamed and trembled underneath. When our galaxy was made, it was a birth between good and evil. That voice, it sounded familiar. A memory flashed in front of her eyes, with a field of wheat that licked at her calves and a tree that burned in the middle of it. Smoke rose from the flames and wafted up her nose and made Dawn cough in defense. The memory vanished and she was no longer in a wheat field. Instead, she was back in her room, with the voice behind the wall still chanting a story. The 2 forces thrived in all of us like flowers that bloomed in spring. We were gods graced with the power of light and dark. Each was gifted with a puppet soul, a soul of pure evil capable of destroying its host in times of fear and anger if we let it consume us. For thousands of years, our land prospered in harmony and light. The presence of darkness vanished into the night, until one day everything changed, and my people were killed by the very entity that lived inside all of us. My king second in command, Titan, allowed his puppet soul to surface and consume every drop of light he had. With dark power that flowed through him, Titan birthed an army with a black dagger created from his puppet blood and waged war on our empire. Gods against gods who had been fashioned into puppets without a choice. Thousands died from the massacre, and Titan was banished to a place called Earth, where he was to live the remainder of his life as a human. With the last of his power, Titan stole the princess from the grasp of her family, and she was banished alongside him. She was a pureblood, the only ingredient Titan needed to return to Madama. So, she made a decision. She would hide. The story played out in her mind like she had seen it before, and the voice behind the wall silenced after the last ring of his word. No memory came, no vision, Nothing of her past. No, that couldn't be it. Dawn slapped her palm to the wall. She wanted to hear the voice again. Hello? She tried again and ignored Alex's caution. No response came. Dawn sunk to the ground in defeat. It was no use. Tears welled up in her eyes again. She held her face in her hands and sobbed. Dawn breathed in and out and lay her head back against the wall. In the back of her mind, she pictured blades of wheat, a warm sun, and a burnt tree. It was only a few seconds of her memory, and the only piece of her past she remembered. But it was enough to give her hope that she could have a family out there that waited for her to return home. Don't worry, the gentle voice hummed through the walls, as though he could hear her pain. Then he said something that didn't make sense, but somehow made her feel safe. She'll come. I can feel it. Hello everybody, I hope you guys enjoyed that chapter. My book has finally gone on pre-sale on Amazon. That is available worldwide, but if you do live in New Zealand or Australia, please head along to my website wherecreatureshide.com to order the book there. It's so much more cheaper, and also you can get postcards and bookmarks, and there should be candles up soon, so please keep an eye out for that. If you're worldwide, you are definitely able to order the bookmarks and postcards, just not the book, just because it'll be super expensive for you guys, so there's no point in me sending it to you. But yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Okay, I'm gonna go. Bye.